the 49ers just got a massive update. And if it's true, for all my Hawaiian friends out there, this would be a mondo move. And you know who you are, and I appreciate you in the comments. Thank you so much for always being involved and being such an encouragement. Hit subscribe if you're looking for daily 49ers content. It's totally free, and you can always change your mind. But Craig Carlton went on again with Breakfast Ball today, and he said something else that you have to hear. If you didn't hear this already, it is pretty crazy. If you did, you can skip ahead. It's only a minute long or whatever, and then we're going to talk about it, break it down. Plus, we've got a Matt Barrows take that's somewhat related that I think will be kind of interesting as well. So stick around for all of that. But here's Craig Carlton on Breakfast Ball talking about what he's hearing behind the scenes on this deal about Brock Purdy.
Wrap your mind around this. 5 or 6 year deal with the first number of the deal being a 3, meaning $300 million. There's some debate as to how much of that deal would be guaranteed.
I would imagine.
They'd like it to be close to 250 guaranteed. There's some pushback on that from San Francisco.
Yes.
But I was told the deal is a lot closer to happening than not happening. Ooh. And he's going to be a $300 million man. Now, what's key about that? He will not have the highest AAV, meaning single year, who makes the most money
Remember
in 1
that
year.
for a second.
A couple other guys are ahead of him. His total value will not be number 1 overall. Mahomes is still number 1 at 450.
Obviously.
But it shows you that despite what Jed York said a couple days ago in regards to he's our guy because of who he's with, paraphrasing.
That's not how he said it.
It shows you that San Francisco, whether that's Shanahan alone or John Lynch or Jed York, think that he is a bona fide top 10 quarterback, franchise quarterback, and they're going to make that very, very clear. But get ready to see Brock Purdy sign a contract with a total value of $300 million.
Whoa, okay. There's so much to break down in there. We're not going to get to all of it. But there was a lot that was claimed there. I've done some searching in the numbers, and I've got some insight into how much of that is actually possible and possibly true, so we'll get into that as well. But right off the bat, the first thing we have to get into is the fact that he claims this deal is sooner rather than later, that the deal is close to being done. It's much closer to being done than it is not, which is a good thing. No, it's not a complete surprise, but it's always helpful when you have people that are on the inside and they're hearing this kind of stuff. He's claiming insider knowledge on this. So that's interesting, okay? He claims that the deal's not going to be an AAV monster, but could be somewhere to the tune of $250 million guaranteed. Then said that the 49ers probably aren't going to go for that. So we got to make sense of all these numbers, starting with this $300 million number. Okay, and how this all makes up for the 49ers, how this makes sense for the 49ers, and do the numbers actually add up what Carlton's claiming? Because basically, I'll put it to you this way, based on his numbers, if it ends up being a 4 or 5 year deal, I don't see it making a whole lot of sense. At least not all of it is adding up, okay? It sounds to me, by the way, based on the way he claims this, but based on the way he described it, that the source of his information is close to the agents rather than close to the 49ers. So that's how it seems to me, that's where the source of the information is coming from based on how he phrased some of that stuff. But that's kind of a little bit in the weeds there, okay? So he says a 5 or 6 year deal. Personally, I was thinking that the deal was probably going to be closer to a 4 or 5 year deal. So that's interesting in itself. If he gets a 6 year deal, that would be pretty amazing, considering the whole story, considering everything that's happened up to this point. So that's interesting. And we know there are going to be a lot of Purdy haters that are going to not love the deal no matter what's done. So if you're a Purdy hater, I understand that you're not going to like what I'm about to say here no matter what. But in terms of total value, let's start there. In terms of total value, if you'll come up on the screen, there you go. Total value, $300 million would put Brock Purdy third among quarterbacks after Mahomes and Allen, and just before Trevor Lawrence, okay? So that'll put him number 3 in terms of total value on that contract. an interesting one there, okay? Not entirely surprising, but interesting in terms of the many guys that he would be beating out. When you put him next to Trevor Lawrence, like, I mean, I guess I understand from an arm talent perspective why you might be like, what? But every other metric imaginable, yeah, I'm good with Brock Purdy over Trevor Lawrence. I have no issue with that. So from a total value point of view, okay, I'm with you there. I can run with that, okay? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. He also says that the AAV is not going to be, mind-blowing, crazy AAV, okay? So he's not going to be that player at that $65 million, okay? But here's the problem with that. At $300 million over 5 years, that would put him at 60, okay? So if I bring up the AAV, and we're looking at average annual for all these players, Dak is at 60, Jordan Love is at 55. You got a bunch of guys between 50 and 55 until you get down to Kyler Murray down there, okay? So it puts you basically in the top 13 for sure. The picture that's on the screen right here, that is most definitely where you're going to see Brock Purdy when this deal is done. He's going to be somewhere on there in that top 13 list. There's no doubt about it on the AAV scale, okay? If this deal is a 5-year deal and he's accurate about $300 million in the total value, then that basic math, and I know it's a little more complicated than I'm making it, but that basic math puts you at Dak Prescott kind of money. And he claims that he's not going to be exploding on AAV, okay? Now, you can continue to mess with things and say, okay, well, then it's a 6-year, okay? The other number that's out there, by the way, is the guaranteed. He said $250 million guaranteed. If he was $250 guaranteed right now with current contracts, that would put him above Deshaun Watson. That would put him at the number 1 in guaranteed. Now, that's guaranteed at signing. So I guess, anyway, I could have done the practical guaranteed, whatever, who cares? The point is he's going to be really high up there, and I think the takeaway is that the inside information, even if it's coming from the agent side as opposed to from the team side, the information coming out is Brock Purdy's going to be at the top. He's going to be toward the top, and he's going to be at the top of probably at least one of these lists or very, very close to the top of one of these lists, which I think in itself is very interesting. Personally, I don't see him topping all these lists. If he gets a $300 million deal, it's definitely not going to be $250 million guaranteed, in my opinion. I don't see that happening, but we'll have to wait and see. This is a complicated issue. It's not a simple issue, and that's where Matt Barrow's super interesting article, "It's complicated," quote unquote. That's me, okay? I'm not. That's my words, not Matt's words. But here's some insight he said, and now this is behind a paywall, so you're gonna have to go to the Athletic to get the full article there, okay? But Matt Barrow's talked about Brock Purdy and just kind of shared some insight from his perspective on the leverage between the team and the leverage with the player, which is the type of thing that I find really interesting. And I'm just not hearing a ton of it in sports radio right now because of the Warriors and because of the Giants and all that. So it's a little bit of a different situation, like where it is when you're getting close to, players during training camp and everybody's talking about the Niners. So here's Matt Barrows on the complications, okay? The 49ers have some leverage in Purdy negotiations. Lynch, for example, always slides into his answers that Purdy has one more year remaining on the ultra affordable rookie contract. He did so at the Combine and again on Monday. Does it happen this offseason, he said, of an extension? I don't know. Hopefully it happens real soon this offseason, okay? 49ers control Purdy's contract situation for the next 3 seasons. As it stands, he's under a contract for $5.3 million in 2025, and they could apply the franchise tag to the following 2 seasons. It's also worth noting that they recently brought in Mac Jones. That puts a little bit of pressure, of course, on the Brock Purdy deal. Someone whom Shanahan once thought worthy of the number 3 pick in the draft. No, Jones hasn't played up to that billing, not even close, but Shanahan and the 49ers did help another former first-round quarterback, Sam Darnold, resurrect his sputtering career 2 years ago, and he made big money because of it. Having Jones as your number 2 passer gives you a bit more bargaining power than having Brandon Allen in that spot. I just loved how he played that position, especially in college. Shanahan said of Jones, he got the ball to the right spots, didn't take sacks, would hang in there and get hit and distribute the ball of his playmakers. I've seen him do it in the NFL at a high level. We're excited to get him working in our offense. Okay, so there's the pressure. What about from the Purdy side? Okay, Brock Purdy, however, has better leverage, according to Matt Barrows. First, the 49ers' recent offseason roster purge was done in anticipation of a hefty new deal for Purdy. This is a perspective I never thought about. This is a great point from Matt Barrows. How do you reconcile saying goodbye to Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, Aaron Banks, Javon Hargrave, Leonard Floyd, and Malik Collins and not have a new contract for Purdy completed? That is a very, very good point. The 49ers most definitely have to get something done from that perspective, just because that is a bad situation to give up that much talent and we know from Jed York 2 days ago, it's definitely to make way for Brock Purdy. So that's an excellent point. The second point that he made was that the team simply can't afford to have yet another offseason dominated by a contract dispute. In 2023, it was Nick Bosa's, which wasn't resolved until September 7. Last year was Trent Williams and Brandon Aiyuk's, which cast a dark cloud on the entire offseason and then bled into the regular season. By the way, on the Trent Williams one, I'm not claiming something Matt Barrows doesn't believe or anything, but I don't actually know for sure if Trent Williams was a holdout in the end. We never did find out. And because of the situation that happened with his wife and the tragedy and all that, it's not 100% clear if that offseason really was a holdout. I'm not sure. Or if there was other stuff going on that led to the situation that they were in and him showing up super late in camp and all that good stuff or bad stuff. Brandon Aiyuk, however, pretty obvious and not a good situation. Obviously, Nick Bosa set the tone. Nick Bosa's situation, how the 49ers handled it, set the tone for this contract opportunity for Brandon Aiyuk last year to kind of be, I'm just going to do what Nick did, right? Basically, you showed me the roadmap, so that's what I'm going to do. It works for Nick, it's going to work for me. Not a good situation for the 49ers, and if I love Brandon Aiyuk, I want him to be on this football team. I think he's an incredible talent. I can't wait till he comes back and he's healthy. It'll be a good thing for the 49ers. They need a guy like that. But I wonder if, in retrospect, the 49ers should have let him go as a message of, we're not handling holdouts. We're not taking this anymore. This is not how we're doing contract negotiations. You get a window. You get a deadline. If you don't sign, you're gone. You're not here. You don't want to be here? Go. It's harsh, and I don't want that for players. That's not really fair either, because these guys go out there and they put their bodies on the line, and they deserve to get paid. But I do understand at some point you have to draw a hard line. Otherwise, players are going to think they can always just take advantage of the situation and get more out of you. So anyway, all that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comments about this. I think it's a fascinating situation playing out. Do you believe the 49ers have more leverage in being able to force, quote-unquote, Brock Purdy to stay on contract for the next several years? Or do you think that Brock Purdy's in a better position in the fact that the 49ers are 100% relying on him and put all the eggs in his basket? Very much appreciate your take on that, and appreciate you subscribing and being a part of the channel. We're 20 days away from the 2025 NFL Draft, which means... And it's Friday too, by the way, so it's the weekend, and we're 20 days from the NFL Draft. This is amazing. We're getting super close. We're under 3 weeks, so that is fantastic news, and I cannot wait until we get there. Appreciate you guys. Hope you guys have a fantastic night and a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much. That's all I got.